be my last ever book haul. I'm really trying this year to not buy books for as long as I can hold out. I'm trying to just read the books that I own that are unread or use my library. So I placed an order for Book Outlet, which is a site that has really well stocked and discounted books. I told myself I wasn't going to buy any. This was the day after Christmas. Then I saw a bunch that I had read but didn't own, and so I made the rule that I could buy as many as I wanted to, but they had to be books I've already read and loved and didn't have a copy of, so that I'm not adding to my unread pile. So these are all books that I've previously read, I just didn't have a copy of. And this isn't sponsored by Book Outlet or anything, but I just really like them. So if you haven't heard of them, I've done a few Book Outlet hauls on my channel in the past, but I didn't use them for like a full year. And then they had a really good sale the day after Christmas. And so I had to buy some books. I think I only got 7, so that's not too bad. And like I said, I've already read all of these in the past, so now I'm glad to have copies of them. The first one is a collection of short stories I read almost 3 years ago now, and that's Stone Mattress by Margaret Atwood. This was actually the first Margaret Atwood book I ever read, if I can recall correctly, and it's really great. 9 short stories. They're all very kind of twisted and dark, but of course slightly funny because she has a really great kind of twisted sense of humor, and these made me love Margaret Atwood, and since then I've read quite a few of her books. The last one especially I love. It is called Torching the Dusties, I think. Yes, Torching the Dusties, and it's just so sinister and unforgettable, so I can highly recommend this one. Another one I read in 2015 and I absolutely loved. It was one of my favorite books that I read that year. I got it from the library. It is White Oleander by Janet Fitch. This is a very well-known and well-loved book. I think at one point Oprah chose it for her book club, and it came out in the 1990s, I think? Yeah, 1999. And this is a story about a girl whose mother, well, I don't want to say too much about it, but I'll just say that it's about her mother who has unstable relationships with men, and about the girl's journey through the foster care system in Southern California. It's just one of the most atmospheric stories. She captures the desert and the mountains and just all the different settings of Southern California so well. I'm from Southern California, so reading about this was just great to see how she portrayed the different settings that the girl goes through. And it's also an unforgettable story. I love this one and I will definitely be revisiting it again and again. The next one I got was What We See When We Read by Peter Mendelssohn. He is a famous cover designer. I'm sure you've seen book covers by him before. He has a really great website that catalogs all of his covers. But this is a book that is sort of an examination of what we see when we read, and not literally, words on the page, but how we visualize things. It goes through different sort of methods of reading and seeing, and it's just filled with a lot of drawings and graphic design, and it's a really quick and interesting read. I got it from the library a while back and I loved it, but I didn't really want to shell out $17 for it, so I was glad to see it on Book Outlet. Another collection of short stories that I love, and I haven't read anything else from this author since reading this book, is Dear Life by Alice Munro. She's a very well-loved, also Canadian, short story author like Atwood. And this just has a few stories in it that I dearly love and have not forgotten since reading it, along with some other really good ones. The last few stories in this collection are very autobiographical and they all go together, which I love when short stories weave together. But particularly the short story Amundsen, which I think I can link to down below. I think it's on The New Yorker, is wonderful. I love that story and I love this collection, so I'm happy to have my hands on it. Another one I read in 2015 because it was on the Man Booker Prize list for that year. It didn't win, but I am so glad it was on the list because I loved it and I read it. It was Spool of Blue Thread by Anne Tyler, and I'm so happy that this edition was on Book Outlet because I think the US one is fine, but I really like this one, and so now I have a copy of it. I listened to the audiobook of this when I first read it, and oh my gosh, there were some moments that made me super unexpectedly emotional, and I have, again, not read anything else from this author since reading this book, and I really need to fix that because this one was just such a great examination of family dynamics, and I loved the structure. It jumps through different generations within a family from Baltimore, and it just looks at these different small moments and how they have big impacts on a whole family's destiny. I really liked it. If you've read more Anne Tyler, please tell me what you think I should pick up if I liked this one. I know she has so many books, and she's super prolific and well-loved. I just don't know where to start with her after this one, and this one just set such a high bar for me. Another one I read quite a few years ago. I have it on my Kindle, and I loved it, and I want to give it out to people because it's just a good book, I think, for people who don't read very often or want to get into reading, is The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. This book is about a man who gets a mysterious package at his bookshop that he owns. He lives alone on this island, and one day a really expensive copy of, I think it's Edgar Allan Poe's poetry, gets stolen, and the next day, I think it is, a mysterious package shows up and it changes his life forever. It is one of the most sweet and funny but heartbreaking stories. Basically captures like all of the emotions of life in one really short and beautiful novel. I know a lot of people love this one and talked about it over the last few years, and so now I can make other people I know in real life read this one since I have a copy finally. And lastly is one in an edition I've never seen before, by an author who I really like, and that's Slade House by David Mitchell. This is a sort of sequel-ish book to The Bone Clocks, which I love, and this one was really good too. This one is like 5 or 6 chapters, and each one is sort of the same thing over and over with different characters, but of course, being David Mitchell, he kind of puts a twist on it each time, and it's just a really fun sort of take on the haunted house story. I liked this one a lot. I would be interested to revisit it because there's a lot of like mythology that he creates, and he's really good at world building, and it's packed into a very short novel. So I would definitely want to read this one again, and I love this one, but I wouldn't recommend reading it until you've read The Bone Clocks. I don't think you would be spoiled for anything. I think it'd just make more sense because there's a lot of stuff built up in The Bone Clocks that he builds off of in this one. So it would just help to have that foundation, but love this one. These are the last 7 books that I bought, and probably the last 7 I'm going to be buying for a while. I'm trying really hard to just not buy books, except Book of the Month Club, which I just can't help because I have a subscription and everything. But yes, if you have read any of these, like I have, please let me know what you think about them in the comments below. Let me know what Anne Tyler book I should read next, because I've never read anything by her other than this one, as well as Alice Munro. If you have recommendations for more collections from her, because I'm always looking for more short stories to read. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video.